Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, no introduction needed for the one, the only Dr. Teresa Alasio joining us today. Excited to have her here, as always, looking beautiful. She's live on Zoom for those of you just on the podcast, and it's a pleasure to have you back. How are you?
I am just great. Everything is going wonderfully. And, I'm just really happy to be here to talk with you today.
Oh, thank you. It's always a pleasure having you here. Dr. Alasio, remind us how we could reach you. Tell us a little bit about what you do. And I know you have a great conversation in store for us. You always do.
I got stuff for you. Sure. So I am MD. I practice in New York, Connecticut, around the East Coast. That's where I'm based. But I work through telehealth, telemedicine. My company is called Intentional Self. My website is intentionalselfct.com. My Facebook page is Intentional Self, and my Instagram is Dr. Terry Alasio.
Yay!
Yay!
We've talked so much, right? There's a lot to you, what you do. What did you have in mind for us today?
Well, I think a good topic for today is stress. It's a big one, but yeah, there's a lot. So, just before we did the intro, so you were telling me a little bit about how busy you are and how things are off the chain. So how would you, Jill, gauge the level of stress in your life right now?
Oh, mine is like probably a 9. At least a 9. Yeah. 9 to 10. I can't say 10. No, 9. Yeah. Yeah. Because now I got all the holidays. I have all the stuff I've never put away. I have my house is bothering me. And then now it's all the Christmas stuff that has to go away. Oh, and then it's New Year's Eve. Wait, then it's my son's birthday. He turned 8. Now I have to have a birthday party for him on New Year's Day. Make it earlier. His birthday's the 5th. Oh, wait. Then it's my birthday the other day. Oh, now I'm planning my son's birthday February 3rd. Oh, it's my niece's birthday tomorrow. It's my there's 6 birthdays in our family the next 3 weeks. It's just there's a lot. And I'm trying to undecorate. I'm trying to make so I'm a little overwhelmed with the stress level, but it's not so bad. It's not a bad thing, but it's still stress. Yeah. What about you?
Well, okay. So, there's a lot to unpack there, right?
Exactly.
Well, first, happy belated birthday. If it was your birthday recently, happy birthday.
Yeah,
I hope it was
2
good.
days ago. 2 days ago. Thank you. Yeah,
She doesn't even remember.
I don't know what day it is. Yes.
And so that's actually a really good point that you bring up, is that stress does not necessarily be caused by bad things. It can also be good things, like birthdays are good things, kids' birthdays are good things. But in the whole process of planning and executing and running around and getting all that stuff together, I mean, my kids are a little bit older, but I remember the days when I had little kid birthdays, and you had to pick the place, you have to get the goodie bags, you have to order the food.
We took more goodie bags last night for the one in February. The penguin stuff. He's obsessed with penguins. We're making little bags last night. I just want to undecorate, take the tree down, and everyone's in. Yeah, you got it.
That's right. And then you got to do goodie bags. I mean, because what's a birthday party without goodie bags, really?
Exactly.
So I remember those days. My kids are a little bit older. They're 11 and 14. So we don't do that anymore. But I do have, with my 14-year-old is turning 15 in a couple of weeks. So, that's also funny too, right? You have with the Christmas and the New Year's, the holidays, and then you have January birthdays. Those kids, tell me if you think this is true. You kind of get gypped a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. But so this is, stress in our lives. If it's a 9 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10, these chronic stress is from an evolutionary perspective, our central nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system is always on high alert. So it's the same response that our body has when we were, millions of years ago, when we were cavemen, we're cave women, and the lion and the tiger are chasing us, we feel that flight or fight response.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that, our sympathetic nervous system under stress feels like it's constantly being chased by a wild animal,
Mm-hmm.
which
So
is
true.
which is really so difficult for us in the modern world to cope with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And stress is an underlying cause of so many chronic conditions like heart disease, cancer, and autoimmune disease, which is something we talked about recently. And, it's not only, positive emotional stress, which is like, positive stress is the birthdays and the holidays and everything, but also, negative emotional stress, which is very destructive. The negative self-talk that we tell ourselves causes this chronic stress and contributes to the exacerbation of chronic stress in our lives and our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And by emotion, we talk about just this chronic emotional stress, whether it's coming from the inside, through the stories that we tell ourselves and the negative self-talk, or the outside, which is all the external factors.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so by here, we're talking about our sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. Now, we also have a parasympathetic nervous system, which is all the good things, which is how our body's response to, feeding and sex and relationships and being all fat and happy and wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
That's our parasympathetic nervous system. But our sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight, and this is what leads to an increased risk for autoimmune disease, acute stress disorders, and PTSD. And chronic stress can also lead to very unhealthy coping mechanisms, which perpetuate stress. So we're talking about, cravings for sugar, carbs, caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, drugs. Also, behaviors that we use in response to stress, like overspending, overworking, procrastination, addiction of any sort. So these things are, relevant in our lives. So you have the behavioral stress.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like what I also call inflammatory stress that is caused in our bodies from what we take in, like in our diet, right? Like sugar and flour, high glycemic carbs. Like, so, you're stressed out, you eat a pack of Starburst, that is like, giving your body a shot of sugar and highly processed form, right? Even artificial sweeteners, like drinking, massive amounts of Diet Coke or, NutraSweet, Splenda, whatever you put in that stuff, it still causes inflammatory stress in your body. The fact that we don't move as much, so a sedentary lifestyle, we sit at our computers or at our desks all the time, and also the kinds of like nutritional deficiencies that we may have. We don't get enough fiber, we don't get enough whole foods and organic fruits and vegetables, nutrients, can cause deficiencies and cause dysbiosis in our guts, right? And then you have environmental toxins, which are, the herbicides, pesticides, things eaten from GMO foods. And then also a chronic obesity, which causes inflammatory stress in our bodies. So all of these things, it's a pretty bleak outlook.
Yeah. There's light at the end of that tunnel.
Yes, there is, and there is light at the end of the tunnel, because I think, one of the aspects is that once you can identify what's going on in your life, you can identify the stressors, you can identify those pressure points, then you can do something about it, and once you're aware of the implications of stress, then you can realize the importance of reducing it as much as we can. I think that you know, because when our bodies are in chronic stress states, what happens physiologically is that our adrenals, they're little tiny glands that sit on top of our kidneys, and they produce cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline, which are stress hormones. So when these stress hormones are released, it can cause blood sugar disturbances, impaired cognitive function, increased blood pressure, and sleep disturbances. So by sleep disturbance, I would mean that, people feel, they describe it as being wired but tired. You're like really jazzed up, but you can't sleep. And you're exhausted, but you can't sleep. Or panic attacks. And these states, we crave sweets. We crave, all these kinds of, sugar, fat, salt. Also, one phenomenon is funny is that we're in this state, we're easily startled by noises. So you'll notice if you're really stressed out, like even the smallest like noise, like if somebody, if a garbage can closes or a door slams, it just sends you off the charts. And this overproduction of these stress hormones, cortisol, norepinephrine, adrenaline, etc., lead to this overwork and the exhaustion of our adrenals, which causes burnout. So you might hear some endocrinologists term it as, adrenal fatigue or adrenal burnout, which is not really. It's a thing, but we can manage it. We manage that through behavior. There's nothing you can do, medically, really, but you need to manage it behavior-wise. So then if we look at it and we say, well, how all of these stress hormones that are going on, we've got cortisol and adrenaline and norepinephrine and everything is going off and we're in fight or flight. How do these stressors affect our gut and our gut health, which it all goes back to the gut, right? Right. Jill says yes, it absolutely does. It's whenever we talk, it all goes back to the gut. And when we have all this coursing in our bloodstreams, our immune system responds by releasing histamine and prostaglandins. So histamine is something that we release when we have allergies, right? So, you take an antihistamine. Well, histamine is what our body produces. It's produced by a little cell called an eosinophil or mast cells. And it looks like allergies, right? So we may have all the symptoms of allergies, or we may look like we have a cold or something, but it also causes increased intestinal permeability. And what happens when we have increased intestinal permeability, do you think?
It's definitely not good. We're going to be out of balance, out of sync. Is too much coming in? When you say permeable, like coming through?
Permeable means, it's like holes, right?
Okay.
We have leaky gut.
Oh, that's the leaky gut syndrome. Okay, you mentioned that. Okay.
That's leaky gut, right? And leaky gut is the situation where the gaps are open between our intestinal cells. Usually they're fit tight together, right? But when you have leaky gut, those gaps, also called tight junctions, are opened. And when they're open, just even a little bit, you can have bacteria, food particles, toxins. You can have all kinds of things leak through. They just sneak through and they get through those gaps and they get into our bloodstreams. And it's a setup for major immune dysfunction, right? And especially, in particular, systemic inflammation. So we have to make sure that this kinds of things are, under the best control that we can, right? And so basically, we also have reduced blood flow to the gut, and as a result of stress hormones. So because when our bodies are under stress, there's reduced blood flow to the gut, right? So you have like, so that is also, causes reflux, it causes nausea, it causes dyspepsia, meaning like your belly feels, I don't know, your belly feels a little bit, I don't know, pain in the belly, and also it can lead to ulcers. So these are, these are concerns that we have when we have chronic stress, and chronic stress causes actual physical problems. It's not just in our minds.
Yeah.
And, speaking of our minds, we have, this even, we can even extrapolate and go to the gut brain axis, right? Because the gut and the brain have this bidirectional communication between the central nervous system and the enteric nervous system, which is the nervous system in the gut, right? So this influences our thoughts, our influence our gut function, and our gut function influences our thoughts. So we feel butterflies in our stomach, right, when we're nervous, and we have, you can have nausea with anxiety. You feel like you're going to throw up before you go on stage or public speaking. People feel like that sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And so this is your gut brain axis at work. So it's amazing, even in times of, if you can just be aware of it, even in times of stress, and you just look at how your body is behaving and be aware of these things. You can kind of also work to calm yourself down by being aware. And, that, there's neurotransmitters that are produced by the gut. Big one is serotonin, which affects mood, sleep, digestion, nausea, amazing, wound healing, blood clotting, sexual desire, which is incredible. All these different things. Serotonin is, majority of it is produced by the gut. So all of these things that influence your brain are produced by the gut, and that's how they communicate back and forth. So if you have inflamed gut, or you have dysbiosis, you have brain fog, you have impaired cognitive function, it can cause depression, anxiety, all kinds of cognitive impairment. And because of this inflammation of the gut, the dysbiosis was caused by infections of the GI tract, like H. pylori, or leaky gut, like what we were just discussing earlier.
Yeah.
Right. And even actually, which is interesting, bacteria that lives in the gut, which is called lactobacillus, which is a very common commensal bacteria. It lives there. It belongs there. It contains a neurotransmitter called GABA, which helps regulate brain activity and calms anxiety. So if you're in dysbiosis and you have a low level of lactobacillus, then you're also missing out on that lovely neurotransmitter GABA that's going to regulate your brain activity and help you deal with anxiety.
Got it.
Right. It's amazing, right? How all of these work together in concert.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much knowledge you have. Dr. Alasio, just remind us of how we can reach you and your contact information before we continue. Thank you.
Absolutely. So my website is intentionalselfct.com, and my Facebook page is Intentional Self. My Instagram is Dr. Terry Alasio, and my phone number is 203-561-7980.
Perfect. Thank you. Continue, darling. You're on a roll, as always.
So, when we talk about stress and we talk about how our body is functioning, one of the things that is also a major player and can be disturbed with stress is our sleep. And when we have an elevation of our stress hormones, the ones I mentioned from our adrenals, the norepinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol. If your cortisol is out of whack, because cortisol undergoes a cyclical, and it kind of looks like a little roller coaster. It elevates in the morning, and then it peaks again in the middle of the day, and then it goes down at night. But when that's out of whack and our adrenals are burned out, we're wired but tired. and we have problems sleeping. And so we can't sleep for long periods of time. We have poor sleep. We need, adults usually should have 7 to 9 hours a night. It's really difficult to get that sometimes because of, our long work schedules, our demanding home life, taking kids here and there back to, whatever birthday parties or practices or whatever they're doing. This all goes for our sleep disturbances. I know that there's a lot of time, I can tell you, I'm on the road, and then, I'll come home, make dinner, and then go out and pick somebody up from somewhere. We're going all day. We go from early in the morning till late at night. And so it's really hard to come down at night when we finally, are able to come down and hit our beds. But it's really, really important. Yeah. And if I could tell anybody, like, one takeaway that I have from this is, try, one of the ways to really try and reduce your stress level is to get better sleep. A recommendation I have, and one that I actually do every night, is a bedtime ritual.
Yeah.
And actually, my watch gives me an alarm. It says, okay, it's time to go up, time to go to bed. So whatever.
What time do you go to bed, by the way? Just curious.
Well, I go up at like 9:15.
Okay.
And then I'll, wash the face, do the beauty routine, because we all got to have a beauty routine, right? That's very important. Self-care, important. I do a little journal. I do, just put away all the devices. I do my little journal of what I'm grateful for. It helps kind of put me in that mode of, I always say, go to sleep with gratitude and wake up with hope. Wow. That's one of the things I say. And then, I'll probably like read a little bit, or maybe I'll watch a little bit of TV, just a little bit. And by 10, I'm really lights out, but I'm up at 5:30.
I was going to say, what time do you wake up? Okay.
5:30.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
5:30. Well, because my son gets up and gets up really early to go to school. So I want to be up for him and, give him whatever he needs. My soon to be 15-year-old, because I don't get to see him that much.
Aww.
When they get older, and your ones are little still, but
just turned 6 and no, just turned 8, just turning 6. So let's say 6 and 8, but yeah.
6 and 8 they're still like really attached to you. But when they get older, it's like, then you don't see them that much, because they're with the friends, or they're with they've got their own thing. It's their time. Yeah. It's like when you were 15, did you want to be hanging around with your parents? No,
you're right. You're right.
No way. So I get to see them when I can. So that means I'm up at 5:30 in the morning, then, so be it. I'm good with that. But I try and get as much, get better sleep, get the sleep that I can, because I know that if I don't, then I'm not good in the morning. I'm not good all day.
Yeah.
And it's a very, I really try and work on that, and I recommend it highly. Doing that bedtime ritual. I also incorporate, movement. I exercise nearly every day, because just get that movement. And I do it in the morning, because in the morning, cortisol is high. You get a cortisol spike. Okay. So if you kind of ride that wave with a cortisol spike where you have a little more energy, that's really the best time to exercise, if you're able to. I know people who exercise at night and who exercise in the afternoon. So, I mean, I would say, like, whenever you can get it in, get it in. But if you really want to know, like, what's the quote unquote best time to exercise, it's in the morning, because that's when your cortisol is high, and you'd ride that wave. Got it. And it also, sets you up for success that day. So say you exercise in the morning. When I exercise in the morning, I know that I've done something for the day. That's like my accomplishment. If nothing else good happens, at least I've done that one thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think it's important. And the other thing for better sleep, and this is maybe the last thing I'll say on this, is that eating don't eat within like 2 to 3 hours of going to bed.
Yeah.
Because if you eat before you go to bed, your intestinal system, your GI tract needs to rest. It needs to reset. Sleep is a time for our brains and our bodies to reset and recoup from the day, right? So, and do all the little repairs. Imagine like all the little workmen come out at night and they do all the night, repairs. It's kind of like road work, right?
Yeah, true.
So everything needs to be shut down. There needs to be no traffic, and all the roads need to be clear. And then, because if your GI tract is working and digesting and handling all of that, those repairs and that work is not getting done. So taking care of yourself by, allowing your body to digest, a couple hours before bedtime. So if you go to bed at 9 or 10, stop eating by like 7 or 8. Yeah. Right. And you find that you will feel much better. And then also same goes for, alcohol, caffeine, sugar. Sugar at night is something that can be detrimental. And alcohol is, initially may make you sleepy, but you'll find if you have too much of it, you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So it kind of backfires on us.
Guilty.
That's what I would say. I know we all are. We all are. It doesn't, but anyway, if people want to get in touch with me or find me online, my website is intentionalselfct.com, and my Facebook page, you can find me. I'm always on there. It's Intentional Self, and you can find me on Instagram, Dr. Terry Alasio.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here, and looking forward to the next time we connect. You have a great day. Thanks so much. And to all of our listeners as well, we appreciate you. Stay tuned. More of the show is coming right up. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.